and he came on.
Recording is on.
It just blew me away. I said, "Oh, okay."
There's Ken. How you doing, Ken?
Good evening, everybody. Sorry I'm late here. Wants to get going right away. I don't think we have anybody new here. No. Okay, we're ready to go. Okay, everybody, welcome to our mid-month main meeting. On the agenda tonight, we are going to have Wayne doing I assume is part 2 of KiCad, carryover from the last session. I don't know if Peter, you're going to go with the member profile.
Yep.
And Kevin is down for cool chips. So take it away, Wayne.
Speaker on, and where's the share? There it is. Share the entire screen. Hide you. Okay, so if the gods are with us, you should be seeing a picture of KiCad right now. Can anyone confirm that?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so this is where we left off almost. Last time I had demonstrated how to build a schematic of a simple crystal filter. I don't remember how I left it exactly, but if I hadn't mentioned it, I have taken a normal crystal and modeled it on the page as a 3-pin crystal because that offers me a ground pin. And what I did was take a footprint for that and modify it so that the ground pin was actually absent, and that I used the same, I call it the pad, as a grounding pad for the case. Okay, so you'll see that when I start putting the thing together. The very last thing that you do after you're sure that your picture's okay is you generate a netlist. Okay, and then you can actually launch the PCB function from here. I've already got it up, so I just have to find it. This is the what you would see when you come in. Actually, you see a blank screen. I'll explain why I put this up here in a moment. I've just taken the first 2 steps of building it. So let me see. What I'll do is I'll do the noise on the screen surrounding this first, and give you a brief introduction. The screen is not that much different in structure from the schematic diagrammer, but it's a lot more busy. The left-hand side is like the same thing as the schematic, which is to say, what it's really there for is it doesn't put anything on the screen, but it changes the way the screen behaves. So you've got things like you want to be using a metric or an imperial measure. Do you want the beautifully long cursor, or do you want the short stubby one, and stuff like that. Now there's extra stuff on here that I will be showing as I go along. Maybe I'll miss a few. This guy here is for microwaves, which we'll not be doing today. And basically what it is doing is it's controlling a menu that's on the right-hand side over here. Makes it disappear. And this one makes the layers disappear and reappear. Okay, so what you really want to do when you first come into PCB New is you need to sort of set it up for the build. And to describe what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this for manufacture, and I'm going to demonstrate the steps that you go through to set it up, to set it off to a manufacturer. And as such, the one thing you probably need to know is something about what the manufacturer says it can do. I'll explain it this way. There are some features of KiCad that allow you to set the smallest line width, or the closest distance between pieces and stuff of that nature. Generally, it's a good practice, they say, to go to the site of the manufacturer that you're interested in and just check out their capabilities page. So what they tell you is what you want to make sure you exceed, basically. If they say I can print a 0.1 millimeter trace, then you want your traces to be bigger than that. And they'll sometimes tell you what they like. Okay, so I'm just going to switch back momentarily. This should flash and look ugly. Hopefully you're looking at all PCB now. This is who I actually used to send this off. They have a capabilities tab. All of the vendors have something like this somewhere. I took the actual free way of getting this thing done. So free means what you do is you do standard and you do nothing outside of standard. And so you see a lot of things on the page that you can do. Here's some dimensions here. For the free stuff, I'm not seeing it on this page, but I saw it earlier. They can do like a 100 millimeter by, I think it's 150 millimeter size. Most of these vendors in China, they give you the 5 PCB boards for only $5 plus whatever you're willing to pay for shipping. They do a 5 of 100, was it 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. Okay, so it's small. There's certain things with thicknesses. You get down to the traces and stuff down here. These are the things you pay attention to. Now that I've said all that, the reason you pay attention to them is you need to code them into your tool. So I wanted to show you that almost immediately. The first thing you probably want to know is there's page settings, just like the other tool is, so you can put the name of the project that you're working on. I need to scroll out. I don't know if you'll actually see this, but KiCad puts the page in red. I find that really hard to see. Let me hit the home key and get back. Anyway, so yeah, it works the same way. It's just harder to read. What you're really looking for is board setup. So what I'm going to do is a standard 2-layer board, 1.6 millimeters thick, and that is what is basically what everybody's offering you for pretty cheap prices. Okay. Once you do that, you don't basically touch anything else. So you can sort of eliminate. Well, if you eliminate a layer, it doesn't show up on the right-hand side. What else was I going to say? You can have a large number of copper layers if you want. If you're making a sophisticated board, I will never do that. If you're making a single-sided board, you will use the 2. And I would say you wouldn't use one side, but often you do, because the side that you're not using for the traces is the side where you can represent jumpers. Okay. All right. So if you click on layers, that's what you get. This is a default setting for the widths that you have. And I wanted to point out, first of all, it's useless, kind of. You have to change stuff a little bit. Copper layers, you want to go bigger and stuff like that. I'm sorry, text width and text height, you probably want to go bigger. But you see an import settings thing on the bottom here. After you've done a couple of these things, and if you find yourself dialing it in so that you got something that you're comfortable with over the next 2 things I'll be showing you, you can do an import settings. And what you do is you find another project that you're comfortable with. Maybe I can do that. And you go, what have I got here? KiCad projects, feature test, import test. I'll do this one. And basically, once it knows where the project is, it allows you to select whatever it is you want to import. So things like the layers and design rules and net classes, all those sorts of things that I'll be showing you. Well, actually, I'm not going to show all those things, but like that. So the net classes, what this is for, and I'm not going to use it because my design is very simple, is if you have net names coming in from your diagram, what a net name is, a name section of wiring that's the same. Generally speaking, like I've got a ground and that's it. What you can do is you can mess with the default. So normally the clearance between lines is 0.2 millimeters. If you're doing something that you want to have wider, you can change it. Or if you're like me, if I'm making a PCB at home and I don't trust my ability to produce the separation by acid, I might want to make them farther apart and maybe even a bit thicker, just to be sure I get something. Another thing you can do, and I've already started this on this, is you can get some more tracks and vias. The default is 0.250, and you can change the thickness of tracks at any point in time in the actual drawing of this, and you can change via sizes and things like that. I just added a bunch of sizes for width of tracks. If I want another one, let's make it one hole, 1.2 millimeters. That's way big. You're done. And then you can just say, okay. And what that does is over here, it just gives you a large list of things you can offer. When you first load it up, all you see is a 0.250. Okay. Did I miss anything on the board setup? So mainly it's the layers. You might want to mess with this. And if you have a sophisticated design, you might want to assign, what am I going to show you here? At least how does this do here? Assigned to net, selected nets. Yeah. So what you can do is you can add a different net class here, change the values of it, and then you click on the net and you assign the value of the net class. So instead of default, I'll have another one. So why would I talk about that now is most of the time you have something like a power or maybe multiple power inputs to a PCB. If you want to set up the widths to correspond to the power, you would be allowed to set some things, and anywhere there's a power connected to multiple places, by using this technique of naming a net class, you'll be able to essentially cause it to default to the width and all the other settings for that. Now, in my case, because of the way I'm going to handle the ground, it's a lot easier. I don't have to do anything. So I'm going to leave everything else alone. What I have done, first of all, is I have gone to the load net list. So it's the opposite of the schematic. I exported it. If I load it, I just basically, it comes up pre-populated with the project's name for the net, and then you can update the PCB. Since I've done that, I won't do it. It does exactly what you're looking at, it just pulls this up. One other thing I recommend you consider doing, particularly if you're sending it out to the cheap Chinese vendors where they give you the, cheap PCBs, is you might want to put an outline that at least is smaller than the maximum that they allow you to get on the cheap rate, which is what I did. This is 10 by 30. I know I needed this size because I just took a piece of paper and put my parts on it and figured out how big I really needed it. It took me actually 2 tries to get this right, by the way. To draw this is the edge. You have to go over to the layers. So let me talk about the layers first. Here's your 2 copper layers. These 2 layers, I have no clue what they are. Paste is for making a paste template, I believe, for SMD. Silk is a silk screen layer. That's where the writing goes. You notice they're in pairs because it's got front and back. If I had selected multiple layers, I'd have more than 2, all right? Drawings, comments, Eco 1 and Eco 2 basically are for personal use. You can use them for any purpose you want. Normally, I think what they're for is something like if you're having your board actually manufactured and populated, maybe you want to give some instructions and you can put it in there. Edge cuts is where we will put the lines for this. Courtyard is basically for parts, and I don't remember why it's here for this. Courtyard is the line around here. It basically says that's the size of the party. And fabrication, still don't remember. So what I'm going to point out to you is you're not normally using most of these things. You're using the copper layers, this silk screen layer, and you have to use the edge cuts once. So for the edge cuts, if you click on it, that brings me to this. This is a toolbar, same kind of toolbar sort of thing that you saw in the schematic, except of course it's tuned for this. There's your line drawer. There's your fill in with copper. That's a filled zone thing. That's quite useful. Here for different types of lines. Basically, these are these 4 here. That's a line, that's a circle, that's a curve, and that is basically a polygon, is what you might use for cutting an edge. I'm doing a square one, but you can make your PCB board look like any shape you need. You know, consider if you're making something that is an add-on board to an Arduino, you might have to shape it in a certain way. Okay. If you're doing a bunch of linear segments, you'd use this one. Since I'm doing a box, I'll just use this one. All right. Now, what you do is you click where you want to start. And when you click on it, now because I'm sharing the screen, I can't actually see what I'm talking about here. This is why I did this thing. You may have the same problem I do because depending on where your cursor is, the bottom part of your screen might be covering up the Z, X, Y stuff, the grid stuff. But this is what you can do is you can track how far you're actually drawing a line by just clicking, hit the space bar, and that basically zeroes it. I'm sorry, I forgot to hit the line here. Try that again. Click. There it is. And go back to there. Click, hit the space bar, draw a line, click once. This is the fill type thing, so it just shows you a picture. This is quite handy because it's easier to see if you've got a straight line. Click over once, click over twice, and up, and you've got it. Whoops, missed it. I find this quite difficult to do, get it accurate and all that sort of stuff. So I tend to fuss with it, which is why it's pre-drawn. One more try, and then I'll call it quits. So basically what you're trying to do is to get it the right size. That didn't work, so hell with you. So I must have spent like 5 minutes getting this thing right. It's because I have poor hand-eye coordination and stuff like that.
Wayne?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, when I do that, I zoom in really close. Otherwise, I find it difficult to do as well. But
I also do the same. When you zoom in close, of course, you can't see the straightness of the line so easy. So that's why I need the grid. Okay. Another thing that I don't know, say I recommend is you can put the measurement on it. You can actually measure it with this tool here. This measures distance. But over in the place menu, there's a dimension tool that you can use just to draw a dimension. It's nice because it finds the center for you, and you can find the other center, and then you know exactly what you got. Okay, so I did that. All right, so let me do the home again. Now you're started. Now you got to start working. So what are you going to do? The first thing you would be doing is putting your parts on the board. I'm going to do it manually. There's a sort of I think there might be a semi-automated way to do this on the menus. I haven't tried it. Auto route for sure is an outboard thing that you have to install separately to try. And it's really worthless for something this small. Now, I remember the diagram, but you might not. But basically, there's a J1 on the left and J2 on the right. So let me just click on the item and have a look at it. I can't really read it, so let me bring it out. That's J2, so that'll go on the right. Click on the next one. That's J1. That'll go here. And you notice it's got these lines. That's called the rats list because that's where you're going to put the traces, basically. I can rotate that. And of course, I rotate the wrong way and go that way. The two bells are me hitting another key than they are. And then I just place it here. To be safe, I should enlarge it and maybe move it a bit. But I'm placing it so that, from my perspective, it looks like it's pretty much on the line. It's actually covering it here. That won't be a problem because of the way the actual SMA works, but it can be a problem if you're not. And of course, what I could do if I'm really fussed about getting it right is I can change the grid down to I can dial it down to a very low number. I'm going to do this one. And then I'm going to, well, I can't see it, so let me just make it bigger. Got a little bit bigger there. This is helpful because it can tell you where sensors are, but I'm going to say don't worry about that unless you think you have to. I got two transformers. I know T1 is here. I know T2 is here. And how do I want them to draw? How do I want this to draw? Well, basically, I want the center arrow to be on the top. I want this because I want this. Now, let me explain what I was doing. This is about the fourth time I built this thing, maybe fifth. So I basically tried it out, and I found that I liked this layout best because it makes for a pleasing. The thing looks pleasing in the end, and the wires are kind of short and easy to draw. Where is it again? Oh, yeah, you're right. I think you're right. I think it's up on the left and right on the bottom. Now I've basically stored my diagram in several different phases, so I may actually have positioned it differently when we get to that. Then you take Y1 and Y2 are the next ones. Oops. Well, here's the thing I do a lot, and you might suffer from this, is I click on the device, but what I really hit is one of the parts of it. So I hit the label. To do this right, you need to be a little bit focused in. You need to sort of click on something that's clearly in the empty, and then you know you've got it. It lights up as you see there. So then I'm going to right click it. Like how I did it is I decided I wanted to have, this is my little ground lug that I invented for the footprint. And then I'll put one more on here, and then I'm going to fast forward because we're not going to have enough time. Okay, so here's another one here. And they line up, that's an accident. Where's C1? I don't see it. There's C1. So I know C1 is probably the leftmost one, and C2 is probably the rightmost one. And then I line them up. In this case, what I want is I want the grounds in the bottom, so I know the ground is there. So I did this. Come on, you little guy. Come with me. There you are. And I do. See, I've selected the label again. Tricky. Tricky for the clumsy, anyways. I do that, and I repeat. Okay. Rather than doing that repeat now. By the way, if anybody finds this I'm going too fast, stop me. I'm not trying to. I'm just going to show you where you arrive at if you're kind of sloppy like Wayne. Is this it? That's one, so I need to be on 2, I think. Okay, so here I've drawn everything, and I'm kind of happy with it, but you might be able to see that not everything lines up very well, okay, because Wayne's in a hurry. So a better way to see this is actually to go to the View menu, and you select the 3D viewer, and you see how horrific it actually is, okay? So these guys are, this guy's spaced out, this guy's spaced in. Need to do something about them. So I will do that now, quickly. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to click this, if I can get it. I'm going to drag it in a bit, not too far. I may need to move this. Let's just center and see where the center lines up. Center line seems to be okay. So the two transformers look like they're approximately lined up. All right, now, what you can do rather than busily line all these things up, which I actually did the first time I did this, tedious it was, my friends, tedious it was, is you go and you select a bunch of them. And this works like gangbusters on this particular design because it is a linear left to right design. It will not work as well on all PCB boards, but I suspect you'll find opportunities for it. You right click and you look for align distribute. This is a feature you find on GUI designers. It's very handy. So what do we want to do first? Actually, let me take this off here. I'm going to say I'm satisfied with the distance between the left and right on these things. I could line them up a bit better, so I'll go with that. If they're okay lined up left to right, what I really need to do to align and distribute is I need to align to the top or bottom first, and that's what you get. So you get a nice little set of them. They're all the same height, but they're still not evenly spaced, so you do the align a second time. And to do that, you distribute horizontally. Vertically is for a vertical column. And now they're all parity. See that? Saves you bucket loads of time if you know about it. And then same deal here. Let's do a line to, shall we do a line to top? Let's do align to horizontally. But and then finally, if you're like me, you got these runs wrong too. So just look the two of them. You need to use the shift key. How do I do this again? Oh, yeah, the shift key, not the letter key. And I can maybe align those vertically. Okay, so they were aligned. Okay, so that's the purification step. So the next step is to start to draw the lines, okay? To draw the lines, you need to select what layer you're working on. For this project, I actually worked on the top layer, the front layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to not connect the grounds, except to just demonstrate a couple of things. I'm going to use a fill to connect all the grounds on both sides of the board. So basically you start with a line. You make sure your track length is a size you want. You hit the route tracks button and you start going. There is a way to route this. Sorry, I'm going to show you the menu in a second here. This will attempt to route it for you by default, and by default is pretty good, okay? If you go to the route menu, there's a bunch of noise on here that are kind of advanced topics. Differential pairs are for high-speed lines. If you want to know a little bit more about them, or if you want me to talk about it, I'll do that at the end. But basically, for most things, what might be interesting is the interactive route settings. They give you a bunch of features you can play with. They're hard to actually discern. The walk around is probably a good one to have it set to. I think I changed it to highlight conditions last time I played. I will show you shove because it's kind of a hoot. Shove basically, let me draw a line from here. And just take it up here. See, it pushes the other line out of the way. It's so much fun. I don't know if it's practical, but it's a hoot. I'm going to turn that back off because it will mess me around. It was interactive route settings, and I want, I'll do rock around. I think that's harmless. All right, so another one that you would do is the other side of the transformer. You see, you can try to, oh, you can manually route it. I'm sorry, I should have said that. You can try to manually route it, but it's kind of risky sometimes. But sometimes you have to. It made two bends because it's got a right angle. So it goes, I think that must be 45 degrees. And if you didn't allow enough space for 45, it fixes it for you. Okay. This one will go from here to here. This one won't go, I think, at 45 to here. You will do a little bit of jog and so on. Okay. So drawing the lines is pretty simple if you don't have to move apart after you blade it. So if I had to move apart because I decided, no, I was retarded in the first place, I gotta move this in. First I gotta do is I gotta click this guy in the right place so it listens to me. What am I doing wrong? Am I still in a mode? God, do cancel. That's better. I was in a mode, I just couldn't see it. So I've safely moved it to another place. You'll notice that the line didn't move with. It doesn't have a drag. So it's tedious indeed to move parts around unless you're doing just a couple after you've laid the lines down. So, the best recommendation is try not to do that, but you will because, building these things is iterative. All I should do is Control Z. And you will always have cases where that happens, I'm sure. So let me power assist this by moving to the next picture where I've got most of the lines laid out, which should be this one. Okay, most of the lines are laid out. I've done everything but the grounds and this line here. So I'll just take care of him. If you want to see what happens to do something on the bottom layer, I'll run this one on bottom first. And hit the, bottom layer, and then hit the tool. If you don't hit the tool, you don't work. There you go, click. It's green. So you will be able to notice that it says green here and red here. That's obvious. So you know that the green layer is on the bottom and the red layer is always on the top. And if I wanted to, Oh, I need to draw this and get on with, oh yes, right. Excuse me, forgot to do this. It's much more forgiving than me. So I have completed the wiring of the top layer. So the next sort of thing is there's two things you might want to do next. Those are do the grounds, of course. I can do the grounds by toggling, if I wish to, and put the grounds at the bottom by toggling and just connecting all the grounds. But I'm going to do a ground plane. Because the ground plane tends to fill in everything, I like to do a couple of other tasks first. One other thing you might want to do before you get there is, say, put down some text. Okay, text can go on the copper layer if you wanted it to, and if you were building a single, if you're home making a PCB, you would probably want all your text to be on the copper layer, because I imagine it would be hard to iron on the text if you wanted to do that as a second pass. You can use the silk front and back. I'm going to use the back silk, and then I'm going to type in what I'm going to do. I'm just hit the text button. I'm actually hitting it over here. It's going to go to the opposite direction because it's on the back. Eh? This is QER filter NWH. You want to mess with the width and height because that's pretty small. They say they actually recommend is 1.5 wide to 1 tall as a ratio. I think I made my height 2 and my width 1.1 on the actual final one. You'll see it'll look different. And then you can just sort of drop it down anywhere you want it. Okay. If you are wondering what this actually looks like for some reason, on the view page, the view is basically almost identical to the stuff on the left-hand side, isn't it? Yeah. Most of the stuff on view is on the left-hand menu. The 3D viewer is definitely not. Footprint browser is not. And this one is not. Flipboard view. So when you do that, you're looking at the back plane through to the front plane. And you can see because the lettering is in the right direction. Okay. Now, I don't like to do that because I will confuse myself. And home key centers you. So how are we doing for time? Not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to do the silk, not the silk, the filled zones, and they will go in the front and the back as soon as I select it. So the way you do this, the fill zone is you just point at the top left corner. You can actually make this thing do a zigzag if you want. Maybe I should try that just to show you what it would do for a second. The first thing it'll do is ask you, are you sure you got the right layer? And what net is it? So you can have a fill zone for a power layer if you want, or if you have an analog or a digital ground combined, you can do 2 fills. You just have to label a net. Okay? And then labeling a net is what you do in the schematic editor, if I failed to mention that. All right, so we're going to do ground. And you can sort of, just by clicking, you can cause it to draw any shape you want. All right, so generally speaking, if you're trying to do a draw a fill zone around a complex object, that's what you do. There's also a keep away zone. I haven't actually used the keep out area yet, to be honest, but you draw it to prevent the fill zone from filling in effectively. I should probably try that soon. I do simple stuff. So what you're doing is just hitting the corners, in this case, the design, with the assumption that's what you want. And when you hit 4 corners, you double click. Now it's done the fill on the front, and I will point out that it is left a zone. This is for a reason that I've forgotten, but it will not fill to the brim for you. Don't worry about it. Unless, I mean, seriously, if you actually want the copper to come to the edge, you got to start outside. That's hard, but you can measure it. The measure tool, which I'm clicking now, I'll just bring this big enough to actually see for humans, tells me that's 50.51 millimeters, in case that matters to you. Okay. and that's a default. Back home again. Notice what it's done to the grounds of the toroid and the grounds of the SMA connector. What it's doing is it's putting a kind of a heat barrier ground. So rather than connecting it directly to this large mass of copper, it's provided a couple lines to it, and that prevents you from roasting your SMA connector when you're soldering or damaging your board. I guess you guys probably all know that. I think it's cool to see. Now I've done it on the top side. I should also do it on the bottom side. So what I will do now is just do the same thing. I'm doing the same thing and I can't actually see it. I can't see it because it's hidden under the copper layer of the front side. This can be a problem. It's not really in this case because it's so bloody simple. Oh, you can see it. Yes, it shines. It shines now. So, because I'm on the bottom. So there you go. You can see it after you've done it. My bad. And you can see it's done the same kinds of fills. And I think the reason it's doing it on the these things here is I defined the pad as a through hole, just to make sure I had too many ways of hitting the ground. So all the capacitors are grounded and so on. So now I'm basically, I think, almost ready to go. Let's go to the front side again. Four, still okay. What you have to do, of course, is you have to do the design rule check, and you run the DRC and hope for the best. So it said I have no unconnected ends and no markers, and I am good to go. Okay, I'll rephrase that. You don't have to do this. If you don't do it, you might have an error getting its way into manufacture. Okay, so you have a finished board. Now, mine is a double-sided board going out to manufacture. Yours might be a homemade project, single-sided. So this is where the two paths diverge. You want to print that, okay? If you're going to print it at home, you want to select the print board. And you select which layer you want. You can actually select other layers, okay? And what it does is it prints a layer on a page, okay? I do it one at a time because it's a single-sided board, right? You print mirrored or not mirrored. You print mirrored when you're about to do the iron-on or whatever treatment you're using to get the toner transferred. You might not print mirrored if you're like me once in a while when I'm just trying to see if the parts fix. Now, a very funny story here is I did not have an SMA connector that was correct here because the thing that I forgot to do back in the schematic editor when I was assigning footprints is pay attention to the footprint size. So there is an SMA footprint for SMAs, which I had on here, which is about twice as big as this. And I was to that point unaware that SMA, well, these are called small. Well, I didn't realize there was a small size. I thought they were all the size I wanted. So I only discovered that when I printed it out and just tested my parts on it. Okay, so a more kosher way of doing that might be to use a measuring tool of some kind on the actual part you're using before you land it. And the footprints tell you exactly how big they are and that sort of stuff on them, so you don't have that problem like that. Okay, so I am going to go to the part where you are going to actually send it to another person. This is the plot. You go Gerber. This has a plot format. It'll plot a bunch of different ways. When you're sending it out, you use the Gerber format. This thing apparently loads with everything you actually have to have for a decent transfer on it. You see it's left out all the things that I don't know anything about. So maybe they're necessary sometimes, maybe they're not. You've got to be more advanced than me. You also want to generate the drill files, okay? So you do plot to the output directory, which it's going to do, I don't know where it's going to do it. I have trouble remembering. I'm in Crystal Filter 3 now. So let's do that then. Select a folder. Let me just create a folder first, shall I? Can I do that? And I'll call that folder Gerber. Sometimes the tool tends to put things in a subdirectory of the directory that you've made. And I can't remember the behavior here as I do it. Yes, please. Done. Okay, so I've done that, say. I also want to generate the drill hole files. So basically, these are actually the holes in it. If you have holes, maybe if you're doing an SMA board, you don't have any. At this time, I might point out that I could have put 4 holes in this thing, and one of my designs I did, I just sort of took them out. I got tired of putting them on and trying to line them up. You can have holes in the board, and for that, the holes don't necessarily appear in the schematic. They can, because you can like make them ground points, but you can add them on here because they'll be fine. And what you use is I don't remember. I'll look it up. I think you use a pin header hole. So you take a single pin header, and that gives you the hole that you probably want. And then you can take the hole, or if that's not big enough, you can make the hole any size you want. I shouldn't have said pin header. That's wrong. Pin headers are too small. What I did one time was I used a pin header, then I enlarged the hole to the size I wanted. Then I found later that they actually have holes on the this thing here, footprints list, if you want to use them. Okay. Next thing you got to do if you're in the Gerber thing is actually look at the Gerber. Okay, that's quite important to do. I should probably go to the final version. Is this it? No, that's not the final version. This is the one that I actually think I liked. And I am going to go to that directory, which is Crystal Filter 5, go to my Gerber folder. And what you want to do is, from here, I'm on 5, launch Gerber. Oh, it's already running. Yes, launch it. Okay. Then you have to open the file, open the files, and you go to your Gerber file, and you select everything but one, and I forget which one it is. So I'm going to select everything. You can select them individually, but if you select them all, it gives you a better chance of getting a good view, in my experience. Okay, so that one can't be uploaded. Remember, that job can't be uploaded. And it brings it up here. And then you can have a look at it if you want. You can select a different layer, make sure everything looks okay. So this is your sanity check, okay? This is the thing you want to do just before you fire it off to a vendor. Okay. Now, finally, my vendor. Oh, that's not it. I got to go to this site. Eric kindly mentioned a vendor. I think this is them, although I was remembering a different name, but I bookmarked something and I used them. This is all PCB, and they fit the profile that Eric mentioned. Their shtick is this. They will send you a PCB. How it works is you sign on, you log it, you sign up, okay? And you get a kind of a free coupon in your order basket. The first one you order uses up that coupon. And this is what I did. Now, how do I send an order? Maybe I go here, my orders, summary, instant quote, instant quote. You go for the instant quote. This will be different in every system, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why it didn't give me an instant quote, but there we are. Okay, so they do show much the similar stuff. They give you a material side. They set the default to what's available to you, basically. If you can change it, sometimes it means money, sometimes it doesn't. And you'd had to look at that sheet that I started with. Typically, I think colors are probably, you can do green or red, maybe you can do black. I don't know, I don't bother changing it because I'm not interested in learning it. Different vendors than this actually provide a lot more help than I think I'm seeing here, but I went for the freebie. Everything is as you need it to be. Special techniques, chamfering, I don't use any of them. Play through holes. There's one thing here. Panelization, I'm learning about that. KiCad apparently does a lousy job out of the box with panelizing. If you panel by all PCB, I suspect what they do is give you the nice feed channel kind, and they make you pay for the engineering. I'm sorry. Panelization is take that PCB and multiply it. Give me 10 of them. So you can actually take, if you have, if you're building for a 10 by 10 centimeter thing, and you have a 1 by 1 centimeter thing, you can panelize 100 of them. You could. And the question is, will it cost more? Well, it'll cost more if you get them to panelize it. I don't think it costs more if you make your own panelization tabs, which I've seen done and is scary complicated, by the way. So all I'm saying is it's one of the ways you can get multiple boards, basically, is you can ask for multiple boards or you can panelize, okay? If you're familiar with the Me pads and the Me squares stuff from, is it QRP Me? I think that's panelization in action. All right, so basically you just select what you want. Somewhere on here is the size. There it is. You set this actual size, which in my case was 10.5 something and 3.9 something. The quantity, selected the smallest quantity, which was 5. And then you go to the next tab and they say, hey, it's free for you because you don't have to pay anything. And here's the thing. They had a shipping that's free as well. That's the first time I've seen that. Shipping is usually costs you of the order of $20 US, or Canadian, I should say, for the cheapest shipping. Like, it's crazy. So this turned out to be pretty good for me, right? And then you send it, and I did this a couple days ago. So let me just check my orders. And here's my order. It's finished. It says, did I have my date? The order time was the 17th. It's the 19th is when it's supposed to be delivered tomorrow. Sorry, I can't show it to you guys. I just, I was really lying on it for a while. Okay, so that is how you can get it out the door for prototyping. Now, as an added bonus, I've acquired a new friend. I've deep sixed my mail, but there's a minder, I should say a salesperson, who is your contact person. They're expecting you to be an actual engineer, actually. You're a real person doing a prototype. So she's sent me 3 emails asking me how I'm doing. Can I help you? I had her correct my address. Oh, I should point that out. On this service, it cannot do Canadian addresses. The reason it can't do it is it's got a 5-character postal code. And you need to fill in a postal code to get the town. And it doesn't have anything for Mississauga. It's just crazy. I think I managed to get Mississauga out of it somehow, but the postal code was some weird number. So yeah, it does have Mississauga. I'm wrong. It just has numbers in Mississauga, where I live, that are irrelevant. So you would have trouble using that. So what I did is I finished the order with a bad address, and I sent them an email saying, can you help me? And that's how I got contact with Nora, my new best friend, who will be watching me for a long while, I'm sure. Okay, that's it. So before I get off the thing, I know I went really quick on this. I'm still quite long into the hour. Is there any questions that require the product to be up? Or
Wayne, I was just I was going to make a comment. So maybe you might want to leave it up, or you might want to try it later. But you were talking about parts placements, and you were going through the manual process of just going into the clump and grabbing a component. If you go in, what I do is I right click, and then when you right click, the screen that opens up. So if you go in there and right click, No, hit your escape button a couple of times.
Oh,
And
yes,
then-
because I'm in a mode here.
Yeah. Now, get and move footprint. So now if you want a very specific footprint, it'll just grab it.
Thank you very much. That's cool. So C3. Nice. Okay, you move your pointer to where you want it to be. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
at least now you don't have to go searching through a mess of parts because you're always grabbing the wrong one or whatever the
Well,
case may be.
That's true. And there's some stuff over here that I didn't show, like you turn off the rat's nest. Is that? No, it's here. So, what relief that is, not seeing all those white lines, man. But
Oh, I didn't know about that one.
yeah, it is basically there's a bunch of stuff over here, and you can they're basically the rat's nest one. You can hide the fill in if you get lost and you want to see where your lines are and stuff like that. You can show it differently. There's a high contrast and low contrast. I don't know which one this one is. Yeah, there it is. High contrast for pads. There are lots of stuff you can play with. Most of them are inessential, but they're handy if you know them, you can probably figure out a reason that you need them.
I have another question for you, or I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Track widths.
Mm-hmm.
I find that when I put in the track width that I want, and then I exit out of the program and I come back in again, they've disappeared and I have to do it all over again. Is there a way to where it saves permanently?
Yes, I tried that at the beginning. So what we're going to do is go right back to the beginning. You go to page settings, board setup. Okay, there's board setup. Is that it? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so this one here. Sorry, I'm not going to answer that, but it's going to ring. The default is what you're using. Change the default and save it. So you make that 4.
So whenever you start back up again, then you're only going to get one.
Oh, okay. So you're asking for something just a little bit different.
Yeah, like
If you want to use it again, you use
like
import settings.
Yeah, instead of default, you're going to put more in.
Okay, so use import settings in that case.
Oh, so okay, import. All right.
So import settings, you see it says import from a model. So you take the model that you finally got it right, and then you say, okay, I want the layers to be the same. I finally got the text right. It's the size I want, and I don't mess with design rules, but if you did, there you go. Net classes possibly might vary from diagram to diagram, but here you go. Predefined track and view dimensions. That should do it.
Okay.
I think. Okay.
All right.
You might find it the default somehow manages elude you, but I don't think it will, because that's just it's part of the thing that's loaded. Okay. I find that too because I'm too lazy to do the import.
Yeah.
So every time I go in, I have to go in. First thing I do is to set all this stuff up.
And thank you for the aligning tip. I wasn't aware of that one. That's a saver.
Well, it works when it works, and if you're doing filters, it's gangbusters kind of work.
Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, Wayne, that was excellent. I've never personally used CAD, but I could see a big learning curve on this one.
Yeah, it's huge. It's not just what I mean. It's necessarily huge, but there's layers of there's layers to it that you have to start simple and grow into it.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, it's a 30-year-old product, and they've been growing constantly. You can tell from the PCB designer that's where all the free money went. They were really working at much more than the schematic designer.
Good. Excellent. Okay. Any questions? Good. All right. Thank you again. Okay. Next up is Mr. Peter.
Okay. Last month we started the know our members routine. So Frank went up first, and I guess now it's my turn. So here we go. All right. Well, I started my apprenticeship for a commercial industrial electrician back in January of 1973. And I was quite lucky enough to work for a variety of contractors that exposed me to a wide range of experiences in various fields. I did a lot of industrial settings with motor control systems, PLCs, AC/DC drives, laser array sortation systems, high volume air delivery equipment, and then later on 400 cycle power generation and 4160 power delivery infrastructures. I also did some substation construction, industrial commercial projects from new to construction to retrofitting. Some of the larger jobs I'd worked on was at the Fort Oakville plant, Union Carbide in Sarnia, and the Bank of Montreal data center, and Dow Chemical plant in Toronto. However, the best job I had was working in the large office towers downtown Toronto, like TD Center, Commerce Court, Royal Bank Plaza. Now, the work there wasn't really all that challenging, but the girls were pretty and the work was pretty clean. So it was a pretty good job. After I got my license, I began to think about new challenges, even though I didn't have it all that long by that point. And I tried to get specifically into industrial controls. But around that same time, I had an offer from Air Canada, and I started there in January of '80 as a maintenance electrician. My motto in life changed from what me worry to marry me and fly for free. So eventually I was promoted and became a ground support equipment manager, and I had responsibilities for 3 trades: electricians, mechanics, and painters. And that consisted of a staff of about 40, or at least 40 that I was responsible for. And that covered, in those days, it covered the Toronto's Terminal 2 cargo and hangar facilities. My career spanned 35 years, and the last 15 was solely with the cargo branch. And there I was responsible for ground equipment throughout the entire domestic and international Air Canada cargo network. However, my main responsibility was the Toronto Cargo Automated Handling Facility. And at that time, I'm proud to say, it was the only cargo facility in the world that actually operated under a fully automated mode. A few locations around the world were supposed to as well, but they were never able to get it out of a semi-automatic mode. I had to retire so I could devote more time to my main hobby, ham radio. My other interests are playing guitar, golf, and brewing beer. I never had a hit song, well, not counting the one that I did at 3 a.m. After a few Jamesons that only I heard, or an eagle, but as I'm lucky to get a par. But I think I make a pretty decent stout, which I call Wet Dog Stout. And yes, it's sort of named after my dog, but it references to my XYL's comment that the house smells like a wet dog when I'm brewing. So anyway, that's my little brief history of POA.
Very good, very good. Okay, up next is Kevin with a cool chip.
Yes, okay. Let's see, screen sharing right there, and I want this one. Okay, everybody sees that?
Yeah.
So anyway, this week, so who let the smoke out? We always talk about, the magic smoke and that sort of thing, and so I thought, what rather than joining the Let the Magic Smoke Out club, what if we could have a chip that helped us stop that? And I've often wanted to do this on all my power supplies that I use for making circuits or whatever, just because you can put something in there and not worry about it getting zapped by whatever your power supply is capable of providing. And so there's this, if you have a chip that was fast and reliable, and it could sense the current in the circuit, react quick enough to turn it off. And so anyway, yeah, TI makes a chip, and it's like a 2662 or something. Yeah, TPS 2662. And essentially, it's a couple of back-to-back MOSFETs. Total on resistance is a little less than 0.5 ohm. And you program it with a bunch of resistors to set like an under voltage and over voltage. You can even determine how fast it allows current to rise. And you can also program it for the amount of current that it will limit it to before it shuts down. So it comes in 4.5 to 60 volts, and just passes it right through. So it's good over a wide voltage range. It's protected internally. You can go up to minus 60 volts on it, and you won't blow the chip. And as I said, 4.5 to 60. It's good up to 800 milliamps. I'm sure there's other chips that are higher than that, but that covers a lot of what, you know, we do, or when you're testing out small, 3 by 3 millimeters. And as I said, at the back-to-back MOSFET. So, and it responds when you've got it. If you've got a current blocking, if it needs to respond, it's 300 nanoseconds. So I figure that's probably fast enough to keep the smoke in, but maybe not. Depends on what you're doing. And it's $4 a DigiKey, probably cheaper somewhere else. But anyway, I ran across that and I thought, okay, I'm going to get some of these or get a couple anyway and put them on a power supply so that, you know, if something happens, it can slow down the smoke. And then there's actually a reset pin on there as well, so you can when it turns off, you can unlatch it with that. So anyway, that's that, and stop sharing. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, or I can put the link in the chat there. See if I can copy this. And it doesn't want to copy it. Yeah. So I just pasted the link in the chat if anybody wants to get it at DigiKey. So anyway, that's I thought that was pretty cool. There are other chips, or there's other stuff to do that too, like those the current variable resistors that, you know, if you put too much current through them, they act like a fuse, and they go to a high resistance mode, but they're very slow, right? Relatively speaking, whereas this one's quite fast. So anyway, back to you, Ken.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, that was pretty cool.
Seeing the raise hand stuff there, Ken? There's a few people asking questions.
I haven't seen any hands go up yet.
Oh, well, Dave, Hassan, myself, but since I got the floor, I'll ask. Is it, so that's not a one-shot deal then? If you have a fault, then it opens up, and then it stays like that till you hit the reset or correct the fault?
Yes. And in fact, if it has a fault, the sensing circuit, I guess, because of like time lags, responses, or whatever, it's actually got some kind of hardware comparator. It actually shuts it down really quick, and it'll actually try and ramp the current back up again, and then it uses its current limit to actually slow it down. So that's what that capacitor does in there. I think it affects the ramp up time. So it does like a hardware shutdown and then brings it back up to the current length. And then if it decides that it's too much current or whatever, you can have it latch and then you can reset it or whatever. It's quite sophisticated.
Cool. I think I saw Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Kevin, you know, there's a whole bunch of those Chinese power supplies. They're little, tiny little things, and they got little knobs and a LCD display, and they also limit the current. Are they using something like that, or is that? No,
not that I'm aware of. I have a few of those as well, but they're just
work,
right. Yeah, like they're, you know, the little DC to DC converter modules, right?
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
what you're talking about. Like they're like $5 or whatever, right?
Building power supplies out of them, right? They put a transformer in the back of them and connect them to mains.
Yeah, I don't think they're using chips like this. It's just a regular current limit type circuit, right? It senses the output current, and then it turns a transistor or switching transistor on or off based on whether it's allowed to have that amount of current or not. This is more like not a crowbar circuit, but it's a circuit that you could put in the output of that doesn't let any excess current flow.
Right. So that those power supplies are pretty primitive. It's like
relatively speaking. I think that these are actually meant to be used like in PLC circuits and stuff when you're hot plugging cards and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's to help protect that, and that's where some of the application is anyway. But I thought, you know, for a bench prototype power supply feature, it's not bad. And instead of that R limit pot or that R limit fixed resistor, just put in a pot, and you can set whatever current you want down to 25 milliamps.
And for $4, protecting your circuit from reversing the power.
Well, and that's the other thing. If you put reverse power in, it won't let it go, right?
Yeah, instead of using a diode, which you're going to get a drop across.
Yeah, but there's no fun in not letting the smoke out of some circuits.
No, just when you finally do it, it will be more spectacular. I guarantee it.
Did I see a Sands hand up?
Yeah, I was going to mention the same thing Dave was doing. There is another circuit from you can buy a kit. It's just an op amp with a pass transistor, and it also has current limiting. But the benefit is it's got a light that comes on, so you can, it tells you get some indication that it's in an overcurrent position. And you can adjust it slowly.
Well, I think this one had a fault output, if I'm not mistaken. It has a fault signal that you can take out to a microcontroller, and you have an external shutdown. You can shut it down remotely if you want.
Okay. I think there was a pin called health monitor.
Yeah, there's a health monitor, like a not fault. So, and then a shutdown pin as well.
Okay.
So it's quite versatile.
Does it actually limit the output current? Like drop the voltage, or does it shut it off?
It turns it off. It just kills it.
Okay, so it's good for integrating onto your board itself, not as like a.
Well, that's where the application is. I believe anyway.
What about a simple crowbars, like just a BJT with a resistor, or I think there used to be a power supply, a linear regulator, which allowed you to put a resistor in there and have current limiting as well.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, a crowbar circuit though is typically designed to blow the fuse if you've got a problem, right? That's how it works. It just puts a short across the input, and whatever's ahead of it is supposed to take out the fuse.
Yeah, I think all these designs, they have different insertion losses. If you use the BJT with a resistor between base and collector, I forgot the exact circuit, but I think there's huge insertion loss based on
it is. Yeah, you need a big heat sink for those.
Yeah. One more option is there's these Hall effect sensors you can buy, which have like 0.2 milliohms of insertion loss, and they'll actually sense the output current, and it goes up to like 20, 30, 100 amps. The only problem is it has a minimum current like of 2 amps.
Yeah.
But for high volt, like for high power supplies, that could work pretty well. And some of them have digital outputs, so you could just stick it to an Arduino and have a simple loop.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what they use in VFDs and that sort of thing to sense the 3-phase currents or the DC bus currents and stuff, right? Where we're talking, dozens or hundreds of amps.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think, Kevin, that fault pin, I was just looking at the schematic, and it grounds it if there's a fault. So you could put an LED with a plus supply, and it grounds it and turns on your LED.
Yeah. Okay. So there's, I didn't look at it too much other than it's like, oh, that doesn't look too bad for a few bucks. So my next DigiKey order, whenever that might be, it's going to have one of these, I think, or a couple. I always buy 2 now, right?
Yeah, the only
just
thing
in
is,
case you let the smoke out.
it's a QFN package, so it's got the pads under it.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Exposed.
You'll have to use the heat gun or
it's a
air to solder. That's the only thing. But I was thinking putting it on a breakout board and then making it a little more compatible.
Yeah. Why smoke one when you can smoke 2?
Yeah, exactly. That's like Peter said, it's all the fun, right?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jitster. I'm assuming that's Peter. You're muted.
You're muted, Peter.
I was going to say, you definitely want to order 2 or 3, because I was going to say, surely you're going to try it out. Put the power supply through its paces and cause a fault and see how it works, right?
Of course. No, yeah, exactly. Put a short on the output. It should survive.
Now, will you please record that for one?
We'll do a live demo. How's that?
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah.
What
I got a 30 amp power supply behind me, so that should do.
Yeah. What month do you want me to put you down for that one?
Well, let's wait till I get one or two of the chips first,
Right.
and then.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would actually be kind of fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Don't even try it before the meeting. Do
No,
it
I won't.
live.
No,
Do
I
it
won't.
live. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? Comments? Questions?
I got a question for Wayne.
Okay.
Wayne, I'm curious. I know I think you briefly mentioned it, and I think we might have talked about this in past, off and on over a year or so. But have you tried the add-in for auto routing?
I haven't tried it yet. In fact, I was convinced that it required a Linux installation, but I think that was wrong. I think it actually will be installable on a Windows machine. So I will try it.
Okay, it'd be interesting. I know when they were talking about the add-on on some of the earlier KiCad stuff, it didn't work all that well. But I'm hearing that it works much better with the latest version.
I've heard that too. It's I think what it is okay. What you have to do is you kind of have to export your model to this tool, which is standalone, and it's a standalone tool used by other products, by the way. So it's not just KiCad, and it does its thing, and then it sends back to you, and you kind of import a picture somehow. I saw a demo of it once, or I saw it in a YouTube video showing how it worked.
Cool. All right. So has anybody got anything to share with us that they're working on?
I got something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Frank has his hand up though.
Oh, okay. Sorry, go ahead, Frank. Where is he?
Okay, as soon as I get the video here to work. Okay, here we go. I just, as I carry on from the work I've been doing on the bench with the SDR and playing around and finding different SDR programs, I came across a very interesting program. And if you haven't heard about it, it's worthwhile sharing with the group. It's called HamPi. It runs on a Raspberry Pi, and what it is a complete Raspberry Pi operating system with added ham programs that are all configured and raring to go. I loaded it, and it works like a charm. There are 32 different categories of ham programs, such as logging programs, Morse code, SDR, weak signal, antenna, and each one of those has one or more, up to 12 programs under it in that category, and I counted 69 individual programs, all referring to ham radio. So if you do a search for HamPi, you will come up with the HamPi, the World Heritage Site in South India, which itself is kind of interesting, but put ham radio after it. So HamPi, ham radio, and you can do a download, and it's just fantastic. Now, it's caused me to stop all other work I've been doing just to investigate what's available on this program. So it's worth a try. It was introduced, well, the latest version came out in June of this. So it's produced by W3DJS, and it's worth having a look at. So that's about all I wanted to say there.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Bob, go ahead, Bob.
To
You're
supplement
muted.
what Frank says, I've got HamPi running on 3 of my Raspberry Pis, and Dave Slaughter is a local Atlanta Metro guy down here. who's been speaking quite a bit. But if you have a Raspberry Pi or Linux, another aid that you have is to get there's a routine that you can download called Synaptic Package Manager. And if you go to Synaptic has a subcategory of amateur radio, and you'll find Dave's programs, I think almost all of Dave's programs on that Synaptics app. And Synaptics also is just a general repository of programs for Linux and Raspberry Pi. So if those of you who are using Linux or Raspberry Pi, you might want to check that out.
That's very interesting.
Cool.
I didn't know about Synaptics.
Yeah, it's one of the first things I put on any Linux or Raspberry Pi.
I have been using the Ham Pi for about a year and a half, and it has an addictive quality because it allows you to operate remotely. So I actually run the Raspberry Pi and the radio off my iPhone from anywhere in the house using VNC.
Yeah.
And so if I get bored for a minute or television's boring, I just open the thing up and start FT8ing my way through 20 meters or 6 meters.
Yeah, the only problem I think the problem that Dave has been confronted with Ham Pi is that for a lot of FT8 users, it's been a little difficult. One is difficult through him to update FT8, although it is, once you read the instructions, you follow it, it's okay. But if you want to update Ham Pi, you have to reformat reinstall another image, a new image. He hasn't found a way of just kind of like updating Ham Pi yet.
No, I think you're right about the FT8. You can update it on its own, but it doesn't go to the same place in the menu.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, it's not that hard to find, but yeah, I noticed that it's a little clunky in terms of updating, but given its functionality, as Frank pointed out, there is so much in that software package that you can lose yourself for days.
Weeks.
Yep.
Well, Synaptics will give you that and even more.
Yeah.
A lot of electronic stuff in Synaptics also.
Ooh. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
What display do you guys use with the Pi?
I use my iPhone.
I've got a bunch of old. Some time ago I came across some old HDMI TV monitors, small ones, 12-inch ones. So I've got, let me see, 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 of those, and every now and then I'll find a sale on small monitors at electronic stores. So I kind of stack up on those, or I find them at a thrift store.
I ran into a couple of point of sale kiosk monitors. They're I think they're 10-inch point of sale monitors, and they're VGA. So you just buy a VGA to HDMI converter, and it'll drive the Pi. The Pi will drive it no problem. So you can put it on any monitor you want.
Yeah, I've even I've taken one out to the QRP Club field days, and I have a small monitor I got from a club member who used to have a business and of ATM machines, and they've got the monitors pulled from the ATM machine, so they're like around, I don't know, maybe about 6 inches, about 6 inches across, and they're really convenient when you want to work field day. You want to do
probably run 12 volts too, eh?
Yeah. I've got I've got 2 drawers full of wall warts.
Yep. Well, you're right. The smaller size screen with the Raspberry Pi, the whole thing becomes entirely portable.
Yeah.
I got into this. I ran into a guy who's an American expatriate who I think is in Denmark or Norway or as far in the north of Scandinavia that he can get. He's a bit of a prepper, but he put out images originally of Raspberry Pi ham software, and he was running it all remotely. And so I took a number of ideas off of him. The only thing I can't get right now is I haven't figured out yet how to make it run as a hotspot, and I haven't figured out how to get a decent GPS signal into it. I put a GPS dongle on it, and it'll sync up its own time, so you don't need the internet. And then he was running this thing in a tent somewhere north of Lapland, and it was working. And so it's kind of an interesting thing that you can do with a Raspberry Pi and a small remote monitor, or as I say, that even an iPhone works fine, or any tablet that runs VNC.
GPS reception at the North Pole is pretty bad, above like 50-degree latitudes. So he needs like
claims it works.
GLONASS.
I'm not convinced that everything he does is legitimate.
Okay. Yeah. And is the Pi fast enough, or do you guys? Which model do you use?
Yeah, no,
I run 2, 3, 4. I've got
run a 4.
I've got 7 Pi 3 pluses, and I got to count them 1, 2, 3, about 5 Pi 4s. But 6, 5 or 6 Pi 4s.
Yeah, I've got 3 Pi 4s.
Yeah, I mean they'll do a lot of the stuff you want to do. It gets to be taxing when you're doing video and audio, but it can do it. It can do all your web browsing very easily.
Even the Pi 3 Plus will handle the ham Pi.
Yeah.
But you got to make sure you get a very, very good quality serial port, a USB to serial port converter. If my radio uses a serial port adapter, got to make sure it's a good FTDI chip, very good quality.
Yeah, I've learned my lesson, so I buy the chips myself and make the connectors myself, because I've probably got about a dozen FBI to serial converters in the back there that I bought that never seem to work.
Yep, I wish I had that. That would be the next stage. That's a good move, Cherry.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, pretty cool. Anybody else to share anything?
Yep, I'll go next then.
Go ahead.
So, I just hooked up an antenna before this meeting. It's a vertical, about 30 to 40 feet high, and I hooked it up to a tuner. So my thought was it'll either be a lambda over 4 at 20 meters, which is like 33 feet, or 5/8 antenna on 20 meters. I didn't cut it exactly, but I was just testing it out. And I hooked it up to the antenna tuner, and it kind of works. Only 2 ground radials. They're cut to like 35, 40 feet. So they're not exactly resonant. But I tried it, and the funny thing is, on 14 megahertz, I got a good pattern. I hit California. I even hit like Venezuela or something. But then on 7 megahertz, it was really localized. And I don't know why. I'm not exactly sure what it is.
Ground wave.
Yeah, probably the ground.
Never.
Go ahead, sir.
That's a ground wave vertical.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let the smoke out. Don't worry about it.
What's that?
Did you let the smoke out of your tuner?
I've abused this thing all kinds. One more thing is, like I don't clamp it up, so in the morning usually it's all collapsed, telescoped downwards. And I disturbed a bunch of ants when I was moving some bricks, so they were crawling all over the antenna tuner. So I think I might have smoked a few of those guys. I don't know. So I let the ants out. One question is, just for simplicity, I just put the wire inside the fiberglass.
Yep.
I don't know if that's a good idea. Is it going to be great? It's fine.
Why not?
How much power are you running?
100 watts.
As long as the fiberglass doesn't have a wire weave in it.
I don't think so.
No. Are those fiberglass poles you buy from Princess Auto?
No, this is for spider beam.
Oh.
It's really cool.
You just created a 40-meter ground wave. That's what, 33 feet long?
12 meters. So, but it's
12,
about 33 feet. Yeah, roughly.
Yeah. Okay. Basically, that's the antenna. If you isolate it from the ground and you put radios on it, that's the antenna that the Second World War guys with the 19 sets use to do ground communications.
Okay.
So
Which
that's,
part of it makes that?
well, actually, the antenna that you described, the only thing missing was it should sit on a glass insulator on a bayonet in the ground. Oh yeah, if you run into the 19 set guys, they'll tell you all about it. But some years ago, the Signals Regiment here in Kingston got rid of a bunch of stuff, and some of them were these interesting copper-coated steel telescoping poles. So I bought a couple because they're pretty cool, and they're actually the vertical antenna for a 40 meter tactical radio set they used to use, and it's I have one up beside my house right now. That's just about the size you described.
Well, but it's. I mean, why is it ground wave? Like lambda over 4, that should just be for DX, shouldn't it?
Oh, if you want me to get into theory, forget it. I'm just a basic,
But I like, okay, but I'm confused because I mean I figured, okay, the ground connection is nothing. I've only got 2 radios. I didn't bother to hook up the other 2 because it's got to go on the neighbor's fences. So I figured it would be suboptimal in some way. But why is 14 megahertz so much better than 7? I mean,
Time of day.
You're asking those frequencies. That's a considerable difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not necessarily your lambda over 4 for 20 meters.
Yeah.
Okay, and your lambda over 2.
No, sorry. Lambda over 4 for 40 meters.
Or for 40 meters. Yeah.
Okay. 5/8 lambda for. It's all rough. I haven't cut anything. I haven't cut anything properly yet. It's just random wire lengths and an antenna tuner, which I've manually tuned.
I think you're overthinking this a little bit. I think Dave is right. Time of day.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I did try again later. I still got kind of ground Envis, but I also got somebody in Italy picking me up on 7 megahertz. So that means that time of day might have made the difference.
Did you do a beacon on 40?
Yes.
What kind of coverage did you get?
I can send you guys. I can share my screen. You can see the coverage if you want. How do I do that?
You've been doing this for over a year. You should know.
You'd have to conduct this experiment over a number of seasons.
Yeah, I've been having some good luck. Here's what I got. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So it's mostly like local. I'll turn off this. Mostly local. I mean, it's this. I guess this is Envis, isn't it?
Well, it's not really. It's ground wave.
Ground wave. Okay.
It's not
And then-
skywave. It's not skywave. It's ground wave.
This is. Are you kidding me? This is ground wave.
Yeah, probably.
No, I don't think so. Ground
Yeah,
wave is only good
what's
for about 400 kilometers.
Yeah, that's too far. That's Envis.
Mm-hmm. This Italy guy is
But
probably.
if it's Invis,
Uh-huh.
isn't the polarization wrong for Invis?
Well, it's the first skip zone, I think.
If
So
it's
this is
going
probably-
off to the sky, there's no concept of.
I even think that's too far for Nivis. Nivis is much closer in.
Yeah, it's about 400 as well.
But I don't have anyone closer than this. So I think this is the first skip zone. Because there's nobody local.
I would agree.
This
So
is
it's
20
prob-
meters.
This is 20 meters. I'll
Oh,
show
yeah.
you guys the results from. Here, let me go. 10 hours.
20 meters. I think your takeoff angle is a lot different.
I think that's the problem.
I think on 20 meters, I think your takeoff angle is going to favor hitting the first skip zone.
Yeah.
Unless
So,
you're on 40 meters.
so it's. Wait. I'm sorry. I keep getting those two confused. This is 7 megahertz. This is 40 meters. That's 40 meters.
Yeah,
So that's 40 meters.
40 meters. This is Envis, man.
But then I'd get at
But
least.
it's a vertical antenna.
He's warming up worms, man.
Well, yeah, but he's got 2 radials and he's got a vertical element, I'm trying to figure out how it's bouncing it off the clouds.
Hey, Hassan, is it actually straight vertical or is it inverted L?
Straight vertical.
Okay.
Is it a quarter wave or a half wave vertical?
It's roughly quarter wave on this frequency.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's just a taking a piece of wire and lighting it up, and it's not going to radiate very well. It's going to radiate, but it's not going to radiate very well. Most of the radiation is just going up. That's what I think.
Okay. Well, yeah, but okay, so I guess I should just get a better ground plane, and that's how we'll get better radiation angles. Like this is probably 50
Yes.
degrees.
Hassan,
Yeah,
Hassan, the way you could tell, is to go look at a ionosonde. Go look up to see what frequencies are open, what's happening, and to see whether what's happening on 40 meters, and that'll tell you whether you do an NVIS or what's going, because that's telling you what's going on in the atmosphere, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, here we go.
Ooh, that's your 20 meters.
That's my 20 meters. This is from
Oh,
an hour ago.
Your takeoff, you got an excellent takeoff angle on that thing.
Yeah. So this was.
That's nice.
I think it's because this is a 5/8 lambda, so it's like the optimum angle. And I mean, nothing's cut properly. The radials are just roughly the right lambda over 4. So I think I think, and I use an antenna tuner. So
That's okay.
yeah,
This is a perfect application for NEC.
I've gone nuts using NEC. I think the only conclusion I've come to is I gotta have a good ground. That's the next thing.
Yeah, it's part of the preamble on NEC.
Yes, I can't decide between 4 ground radials on the top of my fence, or buried radials, or both. Can I do both?
As many as you want, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't use your neighbor's fence.
Why not?
Well, he might notice and wonder what you're doing to his television.
Oh, nobody uses analog TV anymore.
Oh no, it's not that. It's just that they have this impression that we're warping their minds. They come out wearing tinfoil hats and blaming us for stuff.
I just found out my neighbor's actually he's an electronics guy, so he's cool with this. They agreed to let me put the thing up, but
So then he's the source of interference on 40.
yeah. So
Hey,
yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to figure out what to do. But 5/8 worked better than I imagined. I wasn't expecting.
20 meters has been stupendous this year too. It really the coverage has been phenomenal.
That's the puzzling thing. Like I get on around sunset, and the band goes dead around 11 p.m. or maybe 10 p.m. But it's amazing. I can't understand it. Like
I have had it go all night. Some nights.
really?
Oh yeah. I'm just running a dipole at 25 feet, and it has just been a stunning summer. Just wonderful for propagation on 20.
Yeah, like every
Lots of
single
fun.
time, every signal report I hear is S9, like minimum. Like nobody's ever.
Well, it's just above the noise floor for me because I have an electronics guy next to me.
Okay. All right. So, does anybody use like end-fed antennas?
I wish Rick was here.
Yeah, Hassan, half wave. Use a half wave longer. Like I use an end-fed antenna. It's a random wire length. I got a tuner, and it works fantastic.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
And feds are very, very interesting.
Really?
I did, at the urging of my neighbor Rick, VE3ORY, I built one, and I am a convert. They are wonderful antennas. I built a 40-meter version of it, and the world opened up.
Wow. And what height do you use?
Well, I think its maximum height is about the end. The highest end is 25 feet. The lowest end is about 4.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, I did not put a counterpoise on it. This is a mistake. I should have put a bit of a counterpoise on it. Maybe 3 or 4 feet, 5 feet. I have to go play with that. But it really made a big difference on 40. Now it's cut for 40. So everything else, I get 20, and I think I get 15 on it.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I think I get 15. I think I get 6 too. I'm trying to remember if I can do 6 on it. I don't think I bothered to try, but 15 and 10, 15 and 10 and 20 and 40, and I cannot do 30. 30 is a bad thing. But yeah, an end-fed half wave, very impressive.
Okay, I'll try. I'll try to put one up. I experimented with an L-shaped antenna, and it was amazing. Just like 60 feet of wire, and up in the cross to the chimney, and yeah, I was blown away by how good it was. I could get AM stations every 10 kilohertz from like Michigan and New York.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how high was the vertical component, and how long was the horizontal?
So 40 feet up, and probably about 30, 40 feet across.
Oh, that would explain it.
Yeah.
That's an impressive sized antenna for anything.
Is it?
Oh, that's good size, yeah.
Yeah, these spider beam poles are unbelievable. They're like $100 US. Light enough you can carry it with one hand outstretched, and 40 feet high.
And was that shipped to you by, like, did it come in a giant tube or what?
Well, it's a tiny tube, like 3-4 feet high, about 2-3 inches across. It's really good, and it's some specially designed German-made thing where they've got like the fibers kind of weave in a certain angle, so it's really strong. And I've got this thing up right now with no guy wires whatsoever, and it's just standing straight up.
Is that the one that
in hard weather?
Yeah.
Is that the one that has the clamps at the top of each section?
Yeah, it has clamps, which I haven't bothered to put up. I just twisted the poles a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's up 33. It's up 36 feet, 12 meters.
Yes.
Is there any power lines nearby?
None whatsoever.
That's good.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, okay, the problem is that when it's wet, it sticks well. So sometimes at night, it'll just telescope down, and it'll come in the morning, and it's all one on the ground, but in one but it telescopes neatly down, so it just retracts itself.
Put the clamps on.
Yeah, I do have the guy wire kit. I just haven't bothered to hook it up yet. I'm still trying to figure out where to place it.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, you guys should get them. They come in 60-foot versions too.
Oh, my neighbors have noticed that.
Yeah. So one question I had is, all the bands above 20 meters, I hear literally nothing, like zilch. Maybe one digital mode somewhere, but are they really that dead, or is it just that my antenna's not set for those?
Well, Dave EAC's been doing wonderfully on 6, better than I am. 6,
Yeah,
10, 15, 12, 17.
Really?
I'm using a Cushcraft R8. That's about 30 something, and that's essentially a end-fed vertical. And I've got 122 countries in the last 3 years on it.
Really?
Hey, Dave, how high is your vertical?
It's sitting on the deck, and so it's and then it's on a pole, so it's probably 10, 12 feet at the base of it. And then it goes up, I think, about 32 feet.
Okay, because I'm just putting up an R5. I've been dying to jump in here and ask a question, because it dawned on me that a half wave, because the R8 and R5, they're all half wave verticals, right?
Yeah, they're end fed.
Yeah, and so based on that, you don't need any radials. You could just put that antenna up. And as well, it dawned on me that for a half wave, any kind of vertical, the height above ground doesn't matter.
No, they say about 10 feet is about right for these. And I've had fantastic luck with it, just outstanding. And you're still up
I used
to
to
what
run
the
my R7 at 4
propagation
feet.
and time of day and sunspots and all the rest of that. Because there's days things run hot, and then there's days that ain't no one out there.
Because I'm thinking of putting my vertical up. It's going to go up about 20, 25 feet. So that's plenty high enough
Oh
to
God, yes.
to get DX, right?
Oh yes. I had my R7 at 4 feet above the ground. The only reason they want you to mount it at 8 or 10 feet is so no one walks into the radios when you're transmitting and you kill them.
Yeah, that's what, because I was reading the documentation and then all of a sudden it hit me because at the last house, I had my R5 mounted a half wavelength on 20 meters above ground.
Holy,
And,
yeah.
and then I realized here at this house, like, what the hell am I doing? It's a halfway vertical, doesn't need radials, right? And it is an end-fed because it's got the tuner box at the bottom. It's got the transformer at the bottom. It's got a capacity hat. It's got traps, and it's like I don't need to put it up that high, so I could just put it up just a safe height above the ground, and I'm fine.
That's all they ever tell you to do, I think, is just make sure that no one can walk into it.
Yeah. Mine's up about 30 feet, I think, in the air, the base.
That's a long ways up. Don't you get worried about all the flexing and stuff it goes through?
No, not an R5. You R7, R8 guys need to worry about that, but not the R5.
Yeah. Oh yeah, mine used to wobble like a fishing pole at 28 feet or something.
My R5 I had winds. It took my TH3 Yagi and the rotator stripped it. I had winds.
Oh God!
There was a break. It stripped the break, and my R5 was perfectly straight, never bent, rock solid.
It was the construction of the R5, and I got convinced by the salesman really because the issue those days was the R5 was a solid built antenna, but the R7 at the time really needed external, extra guiding. It just wasn't as rigidly built as the R5, and I haven't regretted it.
No, that's I can certainly see that that's true. The R7 is not structurally sound. I had guys on it.
The only issue I got with the R5 is right at the bottom. You got those radials sticking out, and so you have to make sure you got enough clearance so those radials are not close to anything. So that's why I'm putting it up at 20 feet, because at that height it's clearing my roof, because I'm mounting it at the side of my house, so it's not getting close to my roof. I can position the radials so it's away from my roof. And I figure that's going to be the optimum spot.
Mine is just sitting on the deck, and I have a 10-foot section of electrical 1.5-inch conduit that it mounts on. And I use 4 Dacron ropes to tie it over to fence line stuff. And that's worked amazingly well.
And the R8 is an upgrade from the R7, I think.
And Dave, the wind in terms of that mount, did you need those guys?
Yes, it behooved me to have that there. I didn't use their kit. I just have the ropes tied at a good point at a diameter transition, so they don't slide down. And I used a hose clamp on them. And there's enough heavy up there that it makes sense. I just have my door hinge 2x4 mounting system so that I can walk it up and down myself with no problem at all.
Yeah, because I just got.
They're really quite lively in a wind.
I just got the Rome brackets for mounting a 3-inch mast against side of a house. It's a heavy duty mount, and I figure that's going to be fine. I got the bolts, lag bolts, which are I think they're upwards of 1,000 pounds or 800 pounds sheer force, and just to pull them out. So I figured that mass is not going anywhere in a windstorm.
Depends on what you plug it into.
Is the Cushcraft R5 still available in the market?
Was that a question for me? I couldn't hear the.
Is the R5 still available in the market?
Is the R5?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
MFJ, I think, doesn't MFJ now sell Cushcraft?
Yes,
Yeah, they
but I
do.
don't think they have the 5.
Yeah.
No, I think it's the 8 or the 9 now, isn't it?
Yes.
Eric, I think Eric just bought an R8. I think Eric did. Peter didn't buy down at Dayton last time we were there. Didn't Eric buy? I think an R8.
I can't remember what he bought, but he buys everything. But yeah, he did buy some vertical in there, but I can't remember.
Because I remember driving back from Dayton, and the box was sitting on my shoulder in the front seat. That's the time he brought Rex back with him.
That's right.
No, it wasn't a Cushcraft because I asked him about it. It was one of the other manufacturers.
Okay, so it wasn't. I thought it was a Cushcraft he brought back.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was.
Was it a Hustler?
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that was
a Hustler or what was
Maybe
the
a
other
Gap?
one? The which?
Was it a Gap Titan?
No.
No, I don't think it was a Gap. I would
it was,
remember.
I'm pretty sure it was a Hustler.
Yeah, it was probably a Hustler. I can't remember exactly.
That
But
design's been unchanged since World War II, I think. One of their cheap ones.
With the Hustler?
Yeah.
Isn't that the one where you have to physically move you have an alligator clip and you move it up and down the coil?
No, that's the old. Yeah, that was an old Hustler. Wasn't that a car mounted? Wasn't that for cars?
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah,
I didn't think
an alligator. Yeah, I
That
thought
was a Gotham. There was a Gotham vertical that operated that way, and it was heavily advertised and had a ridiculously cheap price of like about $20 in the 60s, and you got what you paid for.
Yeah.
They sell one now as an apartment one. I think it's a coil with an alligator clip and about a 7-foot radiator, and it's something to clip onto the banister of your patio.
Yeah. I think even Cushcraft came out with a version as well. I think I was looking at it in the latest QST.
I bought a couple of mobile antennas that are kind of like that. They come with banana plugs, and you move it around for the band you're supposed to be on. They're pretty much a dummy load.
Yeah. Okay, guys.
Well, I just want to say thank you, and I've very much enjoyed being able to view these. And I just want to share my screen real quickly here, if I can, because I've been doing the KiCad, and I was just playing with stuff today. And does that come up?
It does.
Okay.
Ooh.
So that's
Nice.
my project of the day right there. And it's just it's sort of a universal instrument amp thing. And usually an instrument amp uses 3 op amps, and this is a version that just uses 2. And I'm having fun with it. But
That looks great, Dave.
Yeah, it looks wonderful.
Is this the project that you brought last Saturday?
It ties in with one of them. This is that my DBC meter, and I needed I used an instrument amp, and if anyone wanted to duplicate it, it was a $10 part, and I redid it so that I'm using a 50-cent part. But I used a lot more resistors then.
Still a good move.
And you use the KeyCAD to then feed into the GRBL editor and into the 3018 CNC?
That's the next stage. I still have to go in. I have to change the pad sizes. The pads that are in there work just great when you're having a fabricated board, because if you think about what a plated through hole is functionally, it's more like a rivet, and on a single-sided board you don't have that, and I need to make the pads bigger so that they do not delaminate when you're soldering to them. You know, heat and pressure destroys that adhesive bond between the two, and so I just have to make the pads bigger to stay put. And then there's some other little details of dealing with the milling of a printed circuit board, but I'm feeling very confident with the process.
Well, that's good. With more and more of us using KeyCAD these days, there'll be lots of good resources within our group.
So your instrumentation amp, does it use 2 op amps?
Yeah, generally an instrumentation amp uses 3, and you buy them as a just a single chip device. But they work really well. The way I had done it, it took the 1 chip and 1 gain resistor, and that's all it needed. And this uses a half dozen resistors plus the gain resistor.
So you skip the output stage, like the one on the output side?
No, it's if you look in the just the application sheets for the op amps, you'll see the 2 and the 3 versions of doing an instrument amp, and the ones I've looked at, they actually have the math wrong for the 2-chip ones.
So is it differential input or single-ended inputs?
Differential.
So okay, so yeah, I don't know what, I've never seen the 2 op amp version, but that's interesting.
Yeah, it's not used often, and I ran into a EDN article, and it had an additional resistor that operated as a gain control, and it was really slick. So I wired it up on the bench, and it worked exactly as it was supposed to. And so, okay, it works. Let's do a circuit board for this, because they're handy little things to do. And the idea was to have just a 0 offset control, so I could put something at 0 that wasn't at 0 for its no input type of characteristic, and then just put in a gain control.
I'm curious, what frequency are you using it at?
Oh, this is nothing fast at all. This is essentially at DC.
Yeah, you know, the world will change when they have op amps you can just use for HF. It's like everything becomes ideal.
To work in that, there's some very high slew rate ones.
Yeah, I meant I guess affordable ones.
Okay.
The
yeah, this is just using a 358 in what I'm doing here.
Okay.
Cool stuff. Okay, unless anybody has anything else, we can call it a night.
Okay, great meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I enjoyed this thoroughly.
Very interesting.
Right.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Hey, Peter, hang around.
Oh, okay.
So starting next Monday, I'm going to be on vacation for 2 weeks. I'm going to Winterpeg to see my parents
Oh, okay,
and the
good.
rest of my. We're not going to be leaving till like Thursday, so I got like the weekend, Monday to Wednesday. I'm going to try and get this DCR finished.
Okay.
And get it out of the way. There was something else I needed to do. Can't remember what it was. Yeah, so I'm going to try and get that done. So that's where we're at with that. What else